New Spring, the novel by Robert Jordan, is a prequel book. A lot of people are sort of confused on when to read it. Someone told me after book 8, but the inside of the jacket says, from the America's premier fantasy writer, of the best-selling author of Crossroads of Twilight. So obviously I think you read it after book 10. And so I've just finished book 10, so I decided I'm also going to change how I do these reviews. Instead of doing, I was going to do 7 reviews, 2 books each, but for the last 2 I will do this one, New Spring Novel 0, with book 11. And then I will do books 12, 13, and 14 in their own video, because those 3 were based off of the Robert Jordan's notes with Brandon Sanderson. So it's kind of like those 3 books are kind of their own thing. So I want to read them all together. I don't want to mesh book 12 with 11 if it doesn't fit. So books 11 and 12 will be separate. I'll do 9, 10, 11, and 0, and then 12, 13, 14 on its own. So New Spring is a prequel novel about Moiraine. This is basically her story about while she's in the White Tower as an accepted, she hasn't reached the Shawl of Aes Sedai, and also lands there, but he's barely in the novel. So the first thing is, this book is kind of boring. The first half is mainly her dealing with dealing with some office politics, really. I didn't like the cameo boasting. They'd have it gets kind of boring, so all of a sudden they're like, oh, you remember this character, right? And then that character shows up for like a couple pages. And basically about halfway through, Moiraine meets Lan finally, and then the book starts to pick up a little. And there's a little bit of action. There's probably 3 really big action sequences, so it's not a boring book. I just felt like the writer, Robert Jordan, was sort of setting up this to be a full-length novel, but then he just sort of lost interest and said, nah, I don't feel like doing that, so he just sort of ended it. And it ends abruptly, even though it has like the story of how Lan and Moiraine met, plenty of action, a setup for a possible conflict and how they're going to get out of it. It feels very abrupt. It feels like the resolution just kind of just went and then just decided to end it because he got bored. So this novella was spread out through some pages of a magazine. It's collected in a novel form, more like a novella. But essentially it feels like he was setting up something bigger, and then he just sort of cut it off. So it feels a little bit short, and I guess, it's not, I wouldn't consider it required reading, to be honest. If you really just want to find out more about Lan, I guess it's cool, and Moiraine a little bit, but overall, I mean, it's something you could skip if you wanted to. It's not required reading, I feel, but I still wanted to just in case. So that's what I feel about New Spring, the prequel novel. Knife of Dreams is the 11th book in the Wheel of Time fantasy series by Robert Jordan. Now, this book takes no prisoners. It literally starts with 2 highly intense action sequences, and this book also, out of all of them so far, has the most battles, I'd say. So this book is definitely sort of like setting the stage for the finale to come. This would be the last book that Robert Jordan would write on his own before his untimely passing. So the thing I don't understand is that his wife asked Brandon Sanderson to finish off the book series with only 1 book with some notes, but there's at least, after finishing this book, there's at least like a dozen plot points or characters that like need to have a resolution. So I don't know how he's going to do all of that in 1 book. So I, for one, am glad that Brandon Sanderson turned the last book into 3, because there's a lot going on in this book. Rand is still sort of, he wants to make peace with the Xinqian. That's kind of like his goal for the book. Matt is trying to get the Daughter of the Nine Moons to safety. And Perrin finally gets to complete his objective, which I've been waiting for the last like 3 or 4 books. Egwene is still in the middle of doing her mission as well. And Nynaeve has done a hard choice as well. So there's still a lot to go on. A lot of characters don't need to have a payoff or anything, but Perrin gets the biggest one, I think. And everyone else sort of has some stuff going on, and they're sort of setting up into the finale. So pretty much everyone's getting into their final battle. And then, of course, the book also ends on a really interesting note, too. A twist I didn't see coming, which I liked. But overall, Knife of Dreams is a really strong entry because it has a lot of action in it. Because it was intended to be the second last book before the finale. So, I mean, obviously a book like that would have to have a lot going on in it. And overall, I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to read the rest.